up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour with me, your host, Paul Abernathy. Thanks for joining me. We've been doing this now for quite a while. And if you're not familiar with the show, or maybe you just stumbled upon it because one of our loyal followers has let you know about the show, thanks for joining us. We talk all things National Electrical Code and electrically related. We'll talk about all different types of topics, whatever's presented in the comments. Typically, when we ask questions, as long as they're germane to the subject matter, unless it's open discussion. Also, you can submit your questions to be on an upcoming podcast or even discussed on Coffee Hour. If you go to paulabernathy.com and submit your question over there, then it will be selected, either answered in an email or it will be answered on a show or in a podcast episode. And I am behind on podcasts, as I keep telling you. So hopefully we'll get that all caught up and everything for that. So anyway, thanks for joining me. As always, folks, I live vicariously through all of you, all your successes. We want to share a shout out to Brandon today, who is taking his exam. So positive vibes for Brandon today, or anybody else out there that may be taking their electrical exam. It's a change in your life. I tell people all the time, licensure is not just getting that piece of paper. It's making an effort into your profession. It's like a doctor, a lawyer. I treat electricians in the same realm. I mean, it's a noble profession, and you are doing things that not just anybody can do. Now, people try. I mean, there's black market doctors, right? But you don't want them working on you. So we have unlicensed electricians, people that may say they have 30, 40 years in the trade. But if you're not licensed, then what are you doing? Get your license. I mean, why would you not? You're saying, well, I'm in a state that doesn't require licensure. Well, every state requires some form of licensure, whether it's electrical contractor licensing or individual licensing for journeyman or master or apprentice or whatever. Again, it's kind of like just a confirmation of achievement, really, is what it is. And then while we have a lot of master electricians who will get into our our CMECP program, not because they feel they need it for anything, but it's to test their skills, their knowledge, again, to have a credential. They already are master electricians, so we already know they know the code. I mean, they got their license. But they just want to push the elements to the next level and test their skill. For some folks, it may be easy. Tom, for example, is in our CMEC program, and Tom's working through it record pace. But at the end of the day, some people take the full 4 months, and then some people can do it quicker than that. But it's testing your knowledge and skills and things like that. And it's going to be more challenging for other people. But that's why we get licensure and certification and training and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully, there's a big difference between certification and licensure. Licensure is a legal thing, which to do work in a specific field of study, you typically have licensure, which means you have a gateway exam you have to take. Certifications are typically voluntary. And you take them in order to, maybe a company says, I want you to have this certification to achieve this raise or promotion. They're totally voluntary, but it may be something that's imposed by wherever you work. And so, for example, our CMECP program is a certification program, but it's not required anywhere. But you may go to where you work and say, look, if I get this certification, which is a nationally registered trademarked certification, if I get this, will you give me a raise or promotion or advancement, or can I get something to show you that I'm willing to take the reins and be a leader? And that's what we like to say that you use that type of stuff for. So it's really important for people to know the difference in licensure and certifications and things like that. That's a credentialing thing. I talk about that on a podcast. So if you haven't listened, go get our podcast. And if you don't have our mobile app, get our mobile app. It is free, folks, over on our website. Okay. So there you go. There you go. Tom is burning the candle at both ends. He is definitely a worker. Let me tell you that. And I always love the email discussions. Again, I love people in the code, people that are in this field that think outside of the box, that are always thinking about code. And, I made that comment the other day about the island and peninsular thing where the receptacle in the drawer. And I'm like, some people will say common sense, it means in the drawer, but the way the question is written, it could be misconstrued as something else. And I like clarity. And sometimes we change the code every couple of years because we need that extra clarity to something. So this is an area where we're probably going to need extra clarity, but I don't know if they're doing anything in the NITMAM or not. I have not looked, but I'll know because I am going to be, for those that are interested, are going to be there. If you've never been to an NFPA conference, if you're not going to go to the technical parts where we go into code committees and things like that and sit in there because they're open to the public. You can come in. It's not a closed door thing. It's open. Encourage you to go. If you want to go just to go to the expo, I don't do expos that much because again, I just don't walk around and look at things. That type of thing. Usually I'm involved with manufacturers anyway, so I kind of know what's hitting the market. But if you're not and you're in the trade, you definitely at least want to go to a NECA conference or an NFPA conference and go around and look and see the things and talk to the different manufacturers, different people, ask those burning questions that you wanted to ask of a manufacturer about their products. You'll get to see new products, things like that. So it's in Vegas, June 16th, 17th, and 18th is the expo part. And then we as a code members will be doing the 19th and 20th. We'll be doing the NITMAMs. And I don't have a lot to say there, so I'm going there. Who knows? It could be my last code panel experience. Depends how long I stay with Prismium and Encore Wire or how long they keep me on as their expert. But at the end of the day, it's an experience you at least should try once and get out there and meet other people. And sometimes there's social media folks that are there. You can catch up with those social media influencers that people seem to be so enamored with a lot of times. So it's kind of just a cool event. But I will be there if you're in the area. It's in Vegas. I will be there from the 18th to the 20th. So if you're there, look me up. Go at dinner, my treat. I'll take you out to dinner and have a good old time if you happen to be in Vegas during that time. I will be staying at the, what is that? What's the big one down on the end? Daggone it. It's the MGM. No, not the MGM. What's the big one down at the end? The one with the one that shooting took place a couple years ago. I know, right? What is that thing? Damn, why am I drawing a blank? Anyway, it's the big one down at the end, not the other end where Trump's place is, but it's at all the way at the other end, the beginning end of the strip. It's that big one. Damn, why am I drawing a blank on the hotels down there? It's not like I haven't stayed there. I think it's still at MGM Resort, but it's also a Marriott property. Mandalay, that's it. Thank you, Red Dog. Mandalay Bay. Why did I not think of that? But that's where I'll be. I'll be at Mandalay Bay. So if you're there, I don't gamble. I probably won't play $1 in a slot or $1 on the table because I'm not a gambler. I am a realist. I work hard for my money, and I don't believe in just giving it away to the casino. And the odds are always in their favor. So, okay. My wife always says, just play one pull before you leave. Just maybe you'll get lucky, but I don't typically do that. Anyway, but I'll be there if you want to be there, and I'll also be going. As of right now, I will be going to the NECA, which I can't remember, is September or something like that. It's going to be in Chicago. So if you go look up the NECA convention, I will be there. As of right now, I will be there. So make sure if you're out there, you look me up. I love to connect with you. All right. So we're going to continue today. I want to do some shout outs to everybody. So let me know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. Anything you want to share with us, things like that in the comments, no matter what platform you're on. Feel free to do that for us. We love it. And again, if you've never been to Coffee Hour, this is not exam prep, although we do a lot of exam prep, and these things will help you for exam prep. But it's really just to get your juices flowing every day, have something to go look at while you're heading to the job site, listening. And one of the easiest ways, just by the way, if you're saying, I don't want to go to a browser, I'm telling you, one of the easiest ways to get our stuff is simply get our mobile app. It's so easy. You can click this right here, Coffee Hour. Boom, one button. And there it is right there. And if you expand it, it's just click the expansion button. And there it is, Coffee Hour, right there. That's the easiest way to do it using the mobile app. And so it's kind of why we created to make things as easy as possible. So it's free on our website. Just go to fasttracksystem.com and you'll see it in the navigation. It says mobile app, and you just simply download it. It'll ask you, do you want to accept notifications? Say yes. Rarely from time to time, I might send you an emergency notice about a change in a state somewhere or something, but usually I don't send much out. So don't worry about spam, and we're not loading anything on your computer or your phone. It simply basically creates a shortcut link, that type of thing. You could also go to the website, go to Coffee Hour on our website at fasttrackstube.com, and you can bookmark it and save it to your computer screen as well, or to your phone as a shortcut. You could, from your browser, you could do that too, either way. But you get a lot more features with the mobile app. Okay. All right, let's do some shout outs real quickly. Then we'll get into today's lesson, which we're continuing on with service and electrical equipment. And we're going to be starting today's journey with service and outside wiring clearances and all that kind of stuff. We'll be getting into that journey today. And again, conductors are considered outside of the building. So if you have any questions based on the information we cover, we're going to be covering that for the rest of this week, and it might even flow into the beginning of next week. So this is a multi-part series. This is part 2. Hopefully you've watched part 1, which was yesterday. So if you haven't, make sure after today's video, live stream, yes, we are live, you can go back and watch it. Now, keep in mind, we do play replays of the morning coffee hour every day about 5 o'clock Eastern time. So if you miss something or you want to rewatch it again, go watch it again. Sometimes it takes a second look for things to sink in, that type of thing. You don't have to watch it. It is a replay, but if you want to, there you go. We try to do it for your convenience because not everybody can be at the live stream every morning. I get it. All right, Paul, good morning. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Jonathan, glad to have you here. Tino, good morning. Glad to have you here. Rob, good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend. Kendra's in the house. Glad to have you here. Marlon is in the house. Marlon, thanks for joining us. Giving a shout out to all the code nerds out there. Absolutely. Tom, our CMECP candidate. Remember, Thursday is just Friday's less celebrated twin. That's right. That's right. Sky Addle or CI Addle, whatever. I can't never get that right. But welcome. Glad to have you here. Battles, I believe it's Jonathan. This is Jonathan on different platforms, increasing his odds of winning. By the way, hashtag win to spin. Okay. At this point, I think everybody that won courses have their access to their courses. So they're in there studying or learning. Okay. Hopefully you're enjoying your courses. And then all of the other products slowly will go out. Don't worry. We'll try to make sure you get a email notice of when it ships. But there are some things that we need to custom engrave. So again, keep noticing your email. And I can tell you, Jeff has not sent out any of the engraved stuff notices yet. So he went through the course stuff and then they're slowly, that type of thing. Let's see. What's up, Peter? Glad to have you here. Welcome. David Bueno, glad to have you here. Let's see here. Adam is in the house. Adam, welcome. Red Dog.
Woo, 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 woo.
Have you here?
Big dog.
Have you here? Good morning, Haas. Glad to have you here. Erie, hopefully you're, again, fast track student working through the program. Also, let me do a shout out real quick to tell people about the program. Make sure that you know that in your program, you have the competency reviews at the end of each unit, and the answer key is also there. So you should be doing the answers, the questions, and then grading them with the answer key. And so when you're grading it, if example, you should be, if you're getting anything that's under 80%, then you really need to go look at the unit again and really look at what you got wrong and really dissect the question and really take a little extra time. You really should, because if you have 30 questions, you do 100 divided into 30, that'll let you know what each question's worth. And then you do that times the number of questions you got wrong, right? And say it's 5 questions and it's 2 per question, then that's 10, right? Then you would take your 100 minus 10, so you really got a 90, right? So you should be doing that. And if you do your ratio and you're getting less than 80, then you really need to pause and go back and redo the unit. Don't be so quick to move forward. Again, this isn't a sprint, this is a marathon, because you're not absorbing the material adequately if you're getting 70s, okay? Same thing when you're doing questions in the database. So if you're in our Fast Tracks program, for example, and for those that are interested, the address is right there, fasttracksystem.com. If you are going through questions and you're struggling, slow down a little bit. Dissect the question and just take that opportunity to use the index more and work back and forth. Okay, it's not about how quickly you can finish the material. It's about whether or not you're absorbing it. Anything that you ever read a question and you find yourself reading it more than once, then that means you need to take a pause on this question, because if you didn't read it and you didn't grapple or understand it right away, and then there's something wrong. Then you need to really step back and really analyze the question. Okay, don't be in such a hurry. That type of thing. Let's see here. Good morning, Nepo. Glad to have you here. Swartzy's in the house. That's a rarity to have Swartz in here.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
What's up, Daryl? Swartzy's in the house. Okay, here we go. Brandon, good morning. Today, I believe, is exam day. Positive thoughts. Focus, focus, focus. It's not a matter of if you're going to pass. It's a matter of what is the record, okay? And you're in Texas, so I probably do have the record. When I took mine, I was in and out of there quickly, and I think I probably got the highest score on that thing. I pretty much think is hardly anybody. The calculation portion, I got 100%. And I think I missed one on the knowledge part because one of the questions I challenged. I was like, it was written kind of shitty. And hell, the worst part is I probably was one of the ones that helped write the question. But other than that, I was in and out of there probably about an hour and a half or something like that. It was quick, but but I do this for a living, so I would expect as much, right? Let's see here. Manny is in the house wearing the Code Nerd green. I love it. I love that green. Let's see here. On the way to the test. Positive vibes, my friend. You're going to nail it. You got this. Let's go. Let's go. Adrian. Okay. Welcome. Glad to have you here. What's up, Mike? Glad to have you here, Mike. Let's see. Rob, you didn't miss anything, my friend. We hadn't even got started in the lesson yet, so you're good. Thanks for joining us. Tara's in the house. Good morning, Tara. Glad to have you here. Charles is in the house. Charles, glad to have you here. I see you, AJ. Thanks for joining us. And let's see here. Anselmo. Did I get that right, Anselmo? Looks like a new name. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Val is in the house. Val, thanks for joining us. Edgar is in the house. Thanks for joining us, Edgar. Good morning, Charlie. Hope everybody's good. Let's see. Your test is in less than a week. Focus, focus, focus. Okay? Focus, focus, focus. What's up, Jamal? Welcome. Glad to have you here. Red Dog. I got my jersey. Did you get the jersey? Do you like it? You got to have a picture, man. Send us a picture. We'll share it on the morning show. Although I will say, we can start doing that. If anybody gets anything they want to share on the show, a picture, a jersey show, they're celebrating their license or whatnot, please send it to us. Just send it to us here at info@electricalcodeacademy.com. Okay, that's that thing. For example, I can share pictures like this here. Okay? And this is right. For those that are interested in Fast Tracks Tube, there it is. Best video platform out there. Okay. Let's see. Val says you've got access to your course. Good deal. Glad you got it. Robert, welcome. Glad to have you here. San Antonio. What's up, Juan? Glad to have you here, Juan. Ryan in the house. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Let's see here. Marlon says we're ready to purchase the bed bidding software. Could we use it for residential? Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. Residential and commercial. Make sure you let them know that you're, if you're buying it, let them know you know me. Okay. Please do that. Let them know. Okay. They are great people over there. What's up? Francis, good morning from Jersey. Let's see here. Angel, good morning. I am doing well, my friend. Another glorious day. Every day I wake up, I feel blessed that I can come and do this, hang with you, and be able to do these. Okay. Let's see here. Tino, blessing. All is well, my friend, and I do thank you. And we do appreciate you coming. Let's see here. August, good morning. Dallas, my stomping ground for the last 11 years over in Dallas area. There you go. I am doing good, my friend. Thank you. Glad to have you here, Angel. Joseph, up in New Jersey. Glad to have you here. Outdoor weather's beautiful. It's beautiful here today in Virginia. Got some rain coming tonight, but it looks good. All right, guys, continue it up. Let me know in the comments. If you come in late, that's fine. Just let us know you're in here. Let's get into today's lesson that we have for everybody. Good morning, Frank. Whoop, whoop. Glad to have you here, Frank.
Woo, woo, woo. Big dog.
It is almost Friday, and then these weeks click by. You know what I'm saying? What's up, Terrence? Good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend. And as Frank is showing everybody, make sure you do get in with the hashtag win so you can get in on the next drawing that we have going on. Yeah, I know we're slow with our drawing payouts, but we'll get them. We started with the courses first, and we'll get them. We're just a little slow here, okay? Don't worry. It'll happen. All right, let's talk about now. Let's get back into our discussion on conductors, service conductors, and equipment. Let's talk about applications where conductors are considered outside of the building. All right, so the National Electrical Code tells us when things are considered outside of the building. We have 230.6. It's more importantly, it's when we're talking about, and most of the time in these type of questions, when we're really concerned with something being outside of the building, it's more a service conductor driven thing, right? Because a feeder can run through a building, and a feeder is protected by an overcurrent protected device, right? So there's protection there, but service conductors are not. The only thing that those service conductors are protected is from overload, because we'll size the overcurrent device, we're required to provide overload, but we're not providing any short circuit or ground fault protection to those supply side conductors, right? So it's just overload protection. But if they run through a building, they really have no protection on those conductors that we can control, right? It's utility side, and I don't have no control over them. So an interior service disconnecting means must be installed as close as possible to the point of entry of the service conductors and must be readily accessible. Okay, y'all are familiar with 230.70 and 230.71, 230.72. You know, you're familiar with the grouping requirements. But in 230.70, it tells us that the service conductors have to be outside or nearest point of entry, right? And so in this case, what is considered outside? All right, well, in this case, one of the things says a raceway, like this right here, that is installed beneath 2 inches of concrete slab lies outside of a building. So one of the practices good morning, Alex. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
So this is considered outside of the building. It's running under 2-inch slab. Now, what's interesting is there are other ways to be considered outside of the building, by the way. Okay? So if we go look at the NEC really quickly, we have 230.6. So this is conductors considered outside of the building. So conductors, in a lot of other places in the code, when they want something to be considered outside of the building, they'll refer you here. Why reinvent the wheel, okay? They might send you to meet the rules of 230.6, even though it might be some other application. They're telling you, hey, you want to be considered outside the building? Go follow the rules here or one of the methods that are in 230.6, right? What's up, Alberto? Glad to have you here. All right, so 230.6, it says conductors shall be considered outside of the building or other structure under any of the following conditions, okay? Well, the first one that we saw here is when it's beneath not less than 2 inches of concrete beneath a building or other structure. So you run it under 2 inches of concrete. When the code says something has to be outside of the building, that's considered outside of the building, right? Okay. Here, we're installed within a building or structure in a raceway that is encased in concrete or block, not less than 2 inches thick. So this happens all the time where maybe I want to put a service further into a commercial building, for example, and I'll run it underneath the building, and then they'll run it up into the building, but they'll encase it in 2 inches of concrete or 2 inches of brick. Okay, and then run it up, and then they'll put their equipment. And you might go, well, it's in the building. Yeah, but it's considered outside of the building by proxy of following these rules in 230.6, right? All right, so then you got that. And next it says we're installed in any vault that meets the construction requirements of Part 3 or 450, right? So this would be like a transformer vault that has the requirements, the thicknesses, and everything like that. Well, it's a vault, and it's basically considered outside of the building if you have the convolts. So there's some advantages to that because you can come underneath the building, right? And then pop up into a vault and everything is still okay, all right? Let's see here. Next, it says we're installed in conduit and under not less than 18 inches of earth beneath a building or other structure. So one of the other wave, Steve Griffin is the man, okay? He is the man. I don't know. I can't guarantee any discounts, okay? So don't say Paul says you're going to get a discount. I can't say that. You know, he's a businessman. This man has to make a living like we all do. And I think his estimating software is priced so freaking reasonable it ain't even funny. But he has two different versions. He has the hybrid and then he has the next gen. Okay, discuss with him which one's better for your needs. But he's a great guy. Really is a great guy, and he'll definitely take care of you. I get one of the biggest things about him is that you have a resource and that type of thing. So one of the things I'd say is, hey, Steve, if you give me the course, will you throw in the estimating? If you give me the software, will you throw in the estimating course? Because I think they can go hand in hand, and I think if you're going to do all that and take it to the next level, they work hand in hand together. And he's just an amazing resource. He's definitely an estimating and bidding guru. That's most certainly. But to tell him you heard about it on our morning show, that type of thing. So and see where that gets you. But he is a great guy. All right, so if I install it in a conduit, okay, conduit. Notice it says conduit. It doesn't say installed in a raceway. So there is certain things that you can do here when it's 18 inches below the earth, and this could be semantics, but code is code, right? So it doesn't say we're installed in a raceway, which would bring in something like tubing, okay? That type of thing. So it seems to me it has to be a conduit, or rigid intermediate, schedule 80 PVC, schedule 40 PVC, where acceptable. All those are conduits, whereas an EMT is a tubing and it may not necessarily work here. Okay, AHJs may look at this literally and say, no, it's not. EMT is not a conduit; it is a tubing. Okay. So anyway, there you go. And people then ask me, but are you saying that you can direct bury EMT? And my answer to that is yes, you can. It's usually got inherent galvanized protection. You only have to worry about where you put it in severe corrosive environments till you have to wrap it or do something extra. But usually from the manufacturing process, if you go look at Steel Tube Institute, which obviously they make EMT as well, you'll see that they say it already inherently comes with galvanized coatings, a protective coating. It is okay for direct burial, that type of thing. All right. What next? It says we're installed within rigid metal conduit or intermediate metal conduit used to accommodate the clearance requirements of 230.24 and route directly through an eave, but not a wall or building. So this one we're going to kind of see in a minute what we're talking about here. So this is saying, you know what? If you're taking it up the side of the wall and you're going to an overhead mast, then it can go through the eave, but you have all the rules you have to meet, distances and all that in 230.24. But that, as long as it's rigid or intermediate, then it is considered still outside of the building. Okay, so important. You're not going in the wall. It's just a portion that's running through the eave, that type of thing. Okay. Let's see here. What is this? What's up, Saquon? Thanks for joining us. AJ says, what about the conduit from slab to panel? City of Irving claims this must be fuse protected. If it is in the slab and it's a service, okay, if it is encased in 2 inches of concrete, okay, well, the code says that either below 2 inches or it's encased in 2 inches, okay? So again, we go back to reading what it says here. It says, where installed within a building or structure in a raceway that is encased in concrete or brick, not less than 2 inches thick. Okay, so it has to be encased in it. So whatever the raceway you put in it, it has to make sure that it has 2 inches of thickness around it. So it's encased in it. Okay, it's not like you can put it in it and only have a ½ inch of concrete. It has to be encased in it. So a 4-inch slab, you put a 2-inch raceway in it. Okay, then what happens is you've got the actual diameter of the raceway, and then you have the concrete. Is it going to be 2 inches encasement around it? That type of thing. Right? Which means if you have a slab that was 2-inch diameter, right, then you'd have to be 2 inches. Then you'd have 2 inches on the top, 2 inches at the bottom. So that slab would have to be what? 2, 3, 4, 6 inches thick. So they could be doing that where it doesn't qualify. Also, the big difference is whether or not, again, we're talking feeders or service. So if we're doing this to try to keep it outside of the building, then that's, but again, you'd have to get a little more clarity from them what they're saying it needs to be fuse protected. Is it outside of the building? Do they have an amendment that says they're ignoring the allowances in 230.6 2? Are they ignoring this right here? Are they not observing this to be considered? Because here it says it's considered outside the building for any of the following conditions, okay? So you'd have to find out what their rationale is behind it, that type of thing. Now, all feeders have to have overcurrent protection. Service conductors, again, if we're doing it to make it consider it outside of the building. Now, that's not going to work for 1 and 2 family dwelling applications because you're required to have an emergency disconnect outside, okay? But in other than 1 and 2 family, then again, you can run it in the walls, that type of thing. All right, let's get back to the lesson. What's up, Carlos? Glad to have you here. Welcome. Good morning, Jay. Glad to have you here. All right, so that was that one. Below 2 inches of concrete. Conductors installed under 2 inches or more of concrete beneath the building. Okay, there you go. All right. All right, for 1 and 2 family dwellings, the service disconnect means or emergency meter disconnects must be located outdoors in a readily accessible location. So if you're doing 1 and 2 family applications, that right here, good. What are they saying, AJ? This is no, they're claiming that the conduit carrying feeders, the distance from panel to slab are not outside. If it's a feeder, it doesn't matter. All feeders have to have overcurrent protection. That's the only way it becomes a feeder. So I think either we're having a terminology issue here or not understanding. Are you talking about service conductors or are you talking about feeders? Because they, for a guy like me, a technical guy, they are different. So yes, all feeders have to have, whether you run it outside of a building or in the building, they have to have overcurrent protection on them. Right, that type of thing. Service conductors, if you follow these rules in 230.6 and you're either putting it in a conduit 18 inches below grade, or you're putting it in a raceway that, if you're putting in a conduit that's encased in concrete, 2 inches of concrete all around it, then it's outside of the building. If you're doing it below a 2-inch slab, at least 2-inch slab, then it's considered outside of the building until the moment that it penetrates and goes into the building. Unless when you penetrate, it actually is penetrating in a brick or concrete column that is going to give you 2 full inches of concrete around it. So again, they may not be understanding it, or maybe the situations is a little more other details involved. Every installation is different, but it sounds like there's some kind of miscommunication going on with that application, or it could be just what they want. And I will tell you, Irving, Texas tends to have a couple inspectors that kind of can go rogue from now and then. There's a great inspector in there, James Hawthorne. He's a great guy. But sometimes some of those inspectors can go a little bit too far because they're very heavily involved in the code development process and they form their own opinions. and that type of thing. But not saying James, but I'm just saying in general, that type of thing. Sometimes they can go a little too far, but again, there's probably more details than that. All right, code knowledge. When are conductors considered outside of the building? When they are installed in rigid metal conduit? When they are located not less than 7 feet above finished grade? When they are encased in not less than 2 inches of concrete? Okay, and we say encased means the raceway, right? And then you have at least 2 inches of concrete all around it. That's what we mean by encasing it. Okay, and then 4, when they operate at less than 150 volts to ground. Well, there's obviously only one obvious answer here, and that is when they're encased in not less than 2 inches of concrete. Okay, let's see here. Tom says, wouldn't that be closest point entry apply once the service entrance raceway exits a slab or concrete encasement? Absolutely. So in our example, though, let's go back right here. So this is a panel that's in it. If this is a concrete encased, 2 inches of concrete around it, and this is underneath the slab, and I bring this up into this is considered outside. As long as it were to go in here, and this was a, we're installing it, what? If we had, let's see here, in a raceway that was encased with 2 inches of concrete all around the raceway, then guess what? It's still considered outside of the building, even though it's entering into the building. It could, hell, it could go to the second floor. But it's still considered per code outside of the building if you follow those rules in 230.6. And we do this stuff for fire pump applications and other things where we want to keep those conductors outside of the building, but we may want to put it further in, okay? The moment that it goes from outside of the building to inside of the building, then we need to have the overcurrent protection, right? We have to have that established. Now, again, we're not talking 1 and 2 family right now. We're just talking in general commercial and other than 1 and 2 family, because that still requires the emergency disconnect, okay? Application under 230.85 for a 1 and 2 family. But we're not talking 1 and 2 family at this point, okay? That type of thing. Now, people say, well, wait a minute. If it comes through the slab, it's in the building. No, it's not. If it's in a raceway that's encased in 2 inches of concrete, it's still, by code, it's still not entered that building yet. Basically, that column is separating the building from what's considered outside. The moment that that condition changes, then you get the requirements for the service disconnect, for example, being outside or nearest point of entry. The moment that it becomes entering into the building, then that's when that kicks in. Now, could you put it outside somewhere? Absolutely. Carry it in? Yeah, you could do that as well. You could even change it to a feeder. And once a feeder comes in, then you could run it through the building. Okay, not a problem. All right, underground services. Right, so wiring methods permitted for services of 1,000 volts nominal or less are listed in 230.43. We're going to kind of look at those. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them because that's a simple list of all the different wiring methods that are applicable to being able to use them for services, okay? And that is going to be in 230.43. That's like a list of all the different types of wiring methods. Now, direct buried conduits or other raceways must be installed in adherence with Table 300.5a minimum cover requirements, okay? 300.5, just so we can look at it. This is a depth of cover table, and I get this from time to time. People ask me quite a few questions about this. So this is for underground applications, okay? So when we look at this, this is what we're looking at. This is minimum cover, okay? This is for direct burial cable. This is for conduit or other raceways shall be installed to meet the minimum cover requirements. Okay, so this is your minimum cover requirements table right here. Right, 0 to 1,000 volts. Okay, here's your depth of cover. And over on the left, you have the location of the wiring method or the circuit itself. So it's general catch-all, all locations that are not specified. So if it's not something that's specified down here, people tell me all the time is, what do I do if it's not specified down here? Well, then you go right here. There's your default right here. Okay, pretty simple. If you have an application where you're going to use these down here on the left side, then you have varying depth depending on the wiring method or type of exposure, right? So an example, direct burial cables, okay, USC-2, okay, those type of things, or USC-2 or direct burial cables, just a cable assembly rated for direct burial, or the individual insulated conductors like a USC-2 that are either plexed together or dropped in a trench, okay? Their cover is going to be 24 inches. The utility may be deeper. Theirs might be 30 inches. Theirs might be 36 inches. But we're not talking about the National Electrical Safety Code. We're talking about the National Electrical Code. Right? So this is your catch-all for all of the locations, right? So this is just for direct burial cables and curriculum. But here, what if I have all those other locations and I'm using rigid metal conduit or intermediate metal conduit? Then I can reduce the depth of cover to 6 inches, okay, because of the strength of the rigid metal conduit or intermediate metal conduit, right? So what does that mean? One of the most important things that I talk about when it comes to cover is that it's about the cover, right? It's from the top of the wiring method to the final grade cover, okay? Whether, again, if you have asphalt or you have just dirt or you have gravel, it's the final grade, whatever the top is, down to the top of the wiring method, not to the bottom of the trench, okay? So a lot of people may make a mistake and dig an 18-inch trench, let's say, when the cover requirement may be 18 inches, but they forget that the raceway that may be putting in there may be a diameter of 2 inches. So if they have to have 18 inches of cover, right? No, I haven't showed you a list yet. So there is no missing PVC. I haven't showed you a list. I haven't showed you the list in 230.43 at all yet. So at the end of the day, what happens is you get to have a reduced clearance, but you have to make sure that you're accounting for the top of the wiring method all the way up, not just the trench itself, okay? So it's from the top of the wiring method, so it means that an 18-inch cover might need to actually be a 20-inch deep trench in order to accommodate the wiring method. You get what I'm saying? That type of thing, okay? So here you happen to see the columns. This is for direct burial, okay? And this is just the catch-all locations right here, the very top one. And I usually tell students a lot of times is to highlight this with a different color just to make it sure that it stands out, because you get some reductions down here based on these actual locations of where the wiring method of the circuit is. But this is your catch-all right here, all right? And you go over here to the right, you'll see here, this is your column 3. This is for EMT. Again, I have so many people that say, oh, you can't throw EMT in the ground. You most certainly can. In fact, it's listed right here in the table. Well, I wouldn't do that. It would rust out. Then you've got some shitty EMT, because the manufacturers of it do put a corrosive resistive coating on it. So, but anyway, here's EMT. Here's the non-metallic raceways used for direct burial without concrete encasement. That means that it's PVC, Schedule 80, Schedule 40, just thrown in a trench, right? There you go. Or other approved raceways from the manufacturer. This may be also like a reinforced resin type of raceway that the AHJ is okay with, that's marked for direct burial, that you could throw in there. There you go. And of course, you have column 4, which is residential branch circuits. An interesting one about this one is you have to meet all these caveats to even get any of these reductions, okay? So for residential, it has to be a residential branch circuit. It has to be rated 120 or less. It has to be GFCI protection on it, and the overcurrent protection cannot exceed 20 amps. If you meet all those conditions, let's say it's going out to a post light or something like that, then you can have a reduced cover. So the general would be 24 inches, right? For a general application, for, let's see here, for a UF cable, right? But over here, if that UF cable is being used and it meets all this criteria, then they have a reduction to 12 inches of cover, okay? Makes sense? All right, so then you got that. And then, of course, you got column 5, which is dealing with things like irrigation and landscape lighting and that type of thing. Not more than 30 volts, okay? Not more than 30 volts, and installed with type UF or in other identified cable assemblies. So you got to meet all of these caveats in order to get these reductions. Now, you do have some notes here. This is a good time for me to point out about notes again. All these notes that you may see in anything like this, like these notes here, these things like this, that's going to be talking about these different notes down here. And these different notes down here are going to talk about all kinds of things, whether or not you can reduce your depth of cover, what happens if you hit rock bottom when you're doing your trench. These notes are very much applicable, guys. These are not like informational notes where you don't follow these. These are very much germane to this table when they're referenced, okay? So keep them in mind. These notes can be important, okay? So you always want to glance down at your notes because these may have some application. For example, biggest one that we run into right here. So you're doing your depth of cover, right? You're digging your trench. And it says where, let's see here, where solid rock prevents compliance with the cover depth specified in this table. It means you hit rock when you're trying to get down 24 inches, let's say. It says the wiring shall be installed in a metal raceway or a non-metallic raceway permitted for direct burial. It means it's marked for direct burial. It says the raceway shall be covered by a minimum of 2 inches of concrete extending down to the rock. Okay, so minimum of 2 inches of concrete over top of it, down above the wiring method, right? And if that's the case, then you can have your reduced clearance down to as deep as you can get because of the rock. But as long as you put this 2 inches of concrete over it, then it's going to be considered, and you're putting it in a metal raceway or a PVC, for example, and it says non-metallic because it could be something like a fiberglass reinforced type of raceway, that type of thing. As long as you do that, and you're putting that 2 inches of concrete extending down to the rock, then, dude, you're okay. You're going to be fine. You're not going to have anybody damage it or whatnot like that. So anyway, that's just some kind of looking at the table. Let me get rid of that real quick. Let's get back to the lesson. All right. All right, so there you go. So it says where the conductors or cables emerge. Okay, so once you are undergrade, and by the way, here's a good example of this. So this is your cover. Right? You got to account for the wiring method, okay? Got to account for the wiring method, okay? Now, Peter says the compression, well, one thing about it's not so much about the compression as the fact that you couldn't use something like an EMT, standard EMT fitting because it's not going to seal. It's going to allow moisture to get into it. So you're not sealing it, and they're not listed and evaluated for direct burial, that type of thing, okay? So, all right, where are we at here? All right, so where these conductors or cables emerge as a direct wiring, buried wiring method, a bushing or fitting must be installed to protect conductors from abrasion on the end of the conduit or tubing that terminates underground, okay? So a lot of times what you'll have, and I don't know if we have a picture, we don't. So this raceway may come down if you're going to bring like a USE-2 conductors in, and it gets to the end right here. So this end has to have a bushing on it so that these conductors can go in and come up, okay? Or you could have some other type of fitting that makes the bushing irrelevant, so it's not going to damage the conductors, or you could seal it with a sealing. Like let's see here, one of the companies that make like a sealing material that'll go in it, that will go actually in it. You would pump it in there, and it would seal around all these individual conductors, and then you don't have to worry about moisture coming in and getting up into your equipment, anything like that. So again, you could do it that way. So this is kind of a long sentence, but if you were to go to 230.43, you'll see a list of different types of wiring methods that you can use, okay? So, for example, this is your open wiring on insulators. This is your IGS. This is your rigid metal conduit right here. There's your intermediate. There's your EMT, all right? There's your electrical non-metallic tubing, ENT. Yes, that can be used for service as well. Service entrance cables, wireways, busways, auxiliary gutters, rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit, that's your PVC. Cable bus, MC cables, believe it or not. Yep, MC cables used for service conductors. Mineral insulated metal sheath cable, MI cable. I don't see anybody doing that, but you could. Flexible metal conduit, FMC, or liquid tight flexible metal conduit, as long as it's not longer than 6 feet. Okay. Let's see, between raceways or between raceway and service equipment. Okay, so you do have a little bit of length that you're able to use an FMC or LFMC. Let's see here. With a supply side bonding jumper routed with the FMC or LFMC according to 250.102A, B, and C and E provisions. Let's see here. Liquid type flexible non-metallic conduit, high density polyethylene conduit, that's HDPE. Polywater. Polywater was the name of the sealing compound. And they also make a lot of fittings for HDPE as well. But they're a sealing compound, and they will seal as the conductors come into that raceway. And that sealing compound, the way it seals, will basically keep the conductors from moving and not have an issue where they may be abraded on the end of the entry into that raceway, that type of thing. Okay. All right. But these are just the wiring methods. They're over in 230.43. And also type TC cable, TCER, can be used for this application as well. Okay. As long as it's marked as such, and the only product where TC cable is actually marked to use that would meet this requirement is the product that I invented. That's called the hybrid cable. It's available at Encore Wire and Prysmian. That is one of my patents, and that product is TCER, but it is unique TCNER the way it is marked, and the way ours is evaluated. It is also marked for use as service conductors, that type of thing. Okay. Anyway, there you go. All right. Clearances. Now, this is going to get interesting for people because, again, I have a lot of people that say, hey, from that utility pole, that service drop that comes over to the side of my house, I got an inspector telling me I got to have certain clearances on that. All right. So this is important stuff that we're going to learn about clearances. All right. So the point of attachment, that is right here. Okay. This is where this drop would attach to the side of the structure. It says the point of attachment of the overhead service conductors to a building or other structure must meet 230.9 and 230.24 minimum clearances. In all cases, this point of attachment must be at least, this is the point of attachment, right here, must be at least 10 feet above finished grade. So that point of attachment may be the reason why some people have to go through an overhang or put a mast or do something to get it up high enough, because that point of attachment must be at least 10 feet above the finished grade. Okay, that's a given, right? And as always in our Fast Tracks programs, you'll see the code references. Always go check out the code. Go in and out of your course, okay? Don't just read it here and say, I'm done. Go in and out of it. That's the whole process, right? Also, overhead service conductors accessible only to pedestrian traffic must have a minimum 10 feet vertical clearance above finished grade sidewalks, platforms, or projections that will permit personal contact. People will be able to walk under it, get to it. All those type of things are going to have a minimum of 10 foot of clearance, okay? The voltage must not exceed 150 volts to ground. That's a 120 to 40 volt system. That's your normal 3-wire drop that comes down from a transformer, let's say. That is going to be 240 volts between phases. Any one of the phases to ground is going to be 120. Certainly going to be not exceeding 150 volts to ground, okay? Also, here, you'll notice this right here. The 3-foot clearance from windows are found in 230.9. Does not apply to conductors run above the top level of the window. So it doesn't apply up here. Okay, so you could have conductors coming from a drop over top of the window. It does not apply above the window. It applies to the left. It applies to the right. It applies underneath it. And applies out from it as long as this window is openable. If this is not the type of window that opens, then it's different, okay? But that is the general rule for the clearance. Now, that applies to what? That applies to the conductors. That does not apply to the raceway, okay? Another misconception that people have there. I could run this raceway right here beside this window if I want. That is not a problem. I can even run SE cable right here by this one. That is not a problem. The moment that I hit the weatherhead and I have these conductors that come out the end, that is where we could have a problem, okay? And that's where we can't have them within 3 feet, okay? So you have to keep that in mind as you're routing things and running your service conductors up, okay? Now, one of the important things that I like to point out here is, I'll go to the code because this is important stuff for me to point out, is when we go look at the code, and we'll go back and look at this real quick for clearances, okay? So here we're in clearances. And this is the one that people all kind of point to, when it comes to clearances. And the other one that I'll show you real quick is this one, point of attachment. So this is where we got the point of no case shall it be less than 10 feet. So the point of attachment, okay? But the other thing that people tend to lose sight of is all these vertical clearances, the 10 foot, 12 foot, this span. I'm going to show you something. And we want to start that journey right here in clearances. Notice what it says, overhead service conductors. It does not say, folks, service drops, okay? Massive, huge misconception. Now, the utility may use the NEC, and it may follow the same guidelines. The inspector may enforce it the same way, but it's talking about overhead service conductors. That's implying not from the transformer to the point of attachment. That's dropped from the transformer. That is service drop conductors. It's a defined term in the NEC, okay? Usually outside of the scope of the NEC, but we have other things that talk about it because they do come to the building. So we have to talk about point of attachments. We have to define it. But as I said yesterday, if you joined us yesterday, if the utility stops, let's say your property is 100 feet in the property, and the utility is on a pole, and they say, look, we'll go 50 feet onto your property. That's as far as we're going to run it overhead. Okay, so they go over it and they put a transformer over and they at the property, and then they bring it over to a pole that's 50 feet in, right? And then at that point, they go, we're done. From there to the dwelling, that becomes the point, the point of attachment still at the building, but at there, that is the point of line of demarcation where the utility leaves off, okay, in the National Electrical Safety Codes there. And then the NEC will pick up, because from that pole, that final span that's going to go over to the dwelling, let's say, or the building, that becomes something the electrician has to be aware of. That is something the inspector will inspect. That is what we're talking about. That is overhead service conductors. That's what that is, okay? And that is very much germane to these clearances. So you might say, well, then who governs the service drop? Well, that is the utility. And if it is not high enough and there is not enough clearance on that it becomes a hazard, that is when your AHJ may call that out. But their only reason they're calling it out on your inspection is because they probably don't have the ability to communicate this to the utility. So they're going to let you know that they're not going to pass your inspection. You're going to have to reach out to the utility and work through all that and say, dude, y'all are too low. The best way to counteract that is to make sure that, one, that your point of attachment is up high, okay? And you understand where they're coming from, so it's not going to drop down. So when you construct your system, you're already putting it in place where the point of attachment, it may require a masthead. It may require you to take the service entrance conductors up higher to get to that weatherhead that's higher up on the roof, maybe up near the peak. Whatever you need to do it so that it ensures that that service drop from the utility is high. But the NEC really doesn't govern that. It governs overhead service conductors, okay? So always important to keep those things in mind. And a lot of times people enforce stuff because they really just don't know, right? They just enforce it blindly because they really don't know. But here you can see that these clearances above roofs and things like that are talking about overhead service conductors, right? And just wanted to throw that out. And then you go down here, vertical clearances, okay? 10-foot rule. You notice it says vertical clearances for overhead service conductors. Overhead service conductors, okay? All those type of things, right? So important. These are sometimes things that people overlook, right? And I'm sure there's an illustration here. So you notice something right here? No transformer on this pole, okay? But if this right here was under the purview of the electrician, and maybe the utility left off right here, or they've gone all the way back, somewhere back on the property, well, all of these clearances now are under the purview of the NEC, okay? But these are overhead service conductors. They are not service drops at this point. Now, if this had a transformer right here, and the utility ran this down to the point of attachment, then these would be service drop conductors. And they would technically not be covered by the NEC, although they're going to pretty much work hand in hand with the NEC. And most of the National Electrical Safety Code draws a lot of their information from the NEC, or they have their own blue books or their own rules, their own regulations, but you may get an inspector who calls it out. The one thing that I cringe sometimes is home inspectors call that out, like the electrician can do anything about it. They can't on a service drop. They really can't. They're not going to go out there and move that. They need to contact the utility. So again, if the utility was okay with it, all a home inspector can do is write it up and make the homeowner aware of it, but that's not something an electrician can fix. Now, it might be that the only way to fix it is for the electrician to move the masthead higher or move it up so that that drop comes down, because we don't want the utility to come and put it tight to try to keep it up. We want to make sure that it's able to get it up high enough in order to make sure that they get their clearance and that type of thing. Okay. And what I see, this is a lot of older properties where nobody paid attention to that minimum of 10 foot to the point of attachment. They didn't care. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the old home inspections happen, whereas they go to older homes and the utilities didn't care, the inspections didn't care, maybe they didn't have the right good rules at the time, and so things are what they are. Now you got a home inspector coming in there and saying, well, you got to meet code. I'm like, dude, they didn't have a problem with it when it was originally installed, so you can note it for your liability, but you ain't going to be able to change it. It is what it is, okay? And we all know a home inspection is nothing more than a negotiation anyway. They hold zero authority in the sales process. Hopefully people know that. That type of thing. Good information. Love my home inspectors. I teach a lot of them, but they have to remember their role in the process. They basically are facilitating a negotiation between the seller and the buyer. That's it. They have no code authority on anything. They may think they do, but they do not. Okay. All right. So here's your vertical clearances again. So 10-foot minimum vertical clearance is required from any platform or projection from which overhead conductors of 150 volts or less to ground will permit personnel contact. If they can get under it, walk under it, then you got to have that clearance. This is an example of a little patio. So right here, if it's underneath it, it's 10 feet. Okay. The driveway, 12 feet, or it may have to be 15 feet, considering what type of driveway it is, or roadway, it may have a higher clearance, that type of thing. All right. But again, this is for overhead service conductor applications, not for service drops. Okay, makes sense? Okay. Now, if by chance your voltage exceeds 300 volts to ground, okay, exceeding 300 volts to ground, then you'll have a different clearance requirement. It'll be 15 feet of clearance. Obviously, that's going to typically be higher voltages, more commercial, more industrial. The roadway may have more heavier equipment, loaders, forklifts, things like that. Need a little more clearance and those type of things than you would get in a normal residential application, which a residential driveway is going to be a 12-foot clearance, okay? That type of thing. I don't know if I said 15-inch. You know what I mean. Feet. Okay. Public streets, alleys, roadways, parking lots subject to truck traffic, yada, 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 then they're going to have an increase to 18 feet of clearance. Also seen this on exams when it talks about things like areas where you're going to have the overhead service conductors going over areas where it's going to have cultivation, grazing, orchard. Then that's going to be a minimum of 18 feet because of the pickers and all those other types of equipment that have buckets and lifts and things that could go higher. So again, it's all relevant to where that traffic is going to be. And ultimately culminates into something like if you happen to be going over railroad tracks, if that's the case, then we need 24.5 foot clearance vertically over railroad tracks. People say, when would that ever happen? Well, it happens a lot in the rail yards, right? Where you'll have these overhead service conductors coming over, feeding different areas, and it may not be service drops. At this point, utilities said, dude, I'm stopping. Now this is a rail yard. Y'all run y'all stuff. Y'all do y'all's thing. Then they have various clearances they have to meet, okay? They are different, Terrence. Absolutely. I have written books for home inspectors. I teach home inspectors. If you're a member of NACHI, I originally wrote or co-authored their original electrical course, and they still use it today. I just don't edit it anymore. And I did a lot of their videos. So if you're in NACHI and you go through their electrical videos, you'll probably see a video with me in it. The original video I did, dude, I think I must have weighed 270 pounds. I look like a damn beached whale in that video. I'm bulging out of my shirt, and it ain't because of the guns, all right? It's because of the pudding. But at the end of the day, I taught a lot of HIs, and a lot of them are great, but a lot of them think that they're a municipal inspector, and they're not. And so we have to kind of gauge that. Let's say swimming pools, overhead conductors clearances are listed in 680.9. So while these are general clearances in 230, this is another great example where the code can supplement or modify, right? You've heard me talk about that in the code. We talked about that at the beginning of the week when I did some NEC layout. The code can modify or supplement, and this is a case where 680.9 is going to add some additional clearance requirements when you're working around swimming pools and things like that. Okay. Now, what about above flat roofs? Okay, conductor clearances above flat roofs. So conductors must have a vertical clearance of at least 8.5 feet. All right, so if you look right here, this is a flat roof. This roof can obviously be walked on. So we have to have this clearance. So here is the minimum clearance, okay, above the roof surface. These are your code references, by the way. Jot them down. It's your homework. Okay, you'll notice this is for services, but you'll notice this is also a 225 clearance. This is also a feeder clearance. Okay, 225 is outside feeders and branch circuits. Okay, so conductors must have a vertical clearance of at least 8.5 feet. So this is what this picture illustrates. This red area is showing you this no-go zone, okay, above this flat roof. Okay, now that is your vertical clearance. Now the vertical clearance above the roof must be maintained. So you must have this clearance of those conductors that pass over a rooftop must maintain this vertical clearance for a distance of at least 3 feet from all edges of the roof. So this is kind of, think of this as an umbrella. So here's your rooftop, 8.5 feet up, and basically this goes out, right? Out 3 feet all around the perimeter. And I always like this image, by the way, because this raceway is going up in order to get the height that's necessary. People say, well, does that mast have adequate strength if it's rigid or if it's intermediate metal conduit or whatnot? Remember my golden rule? My golden rule is anything 3 foot or more, I'm putting guy wires on it. I don't care whether it's rigid or intermediate. It doesn't say that in the code. It says it has to be adequate strength or use guy wires. You're going to have to make that determination. That is the rule that I use for my company. Anything 3 feet or higher, if it's a mast going up, then I put a guy wire on it, okay? So anyway, and my guy wire was typically in the opposite direction of the weight tendency. So if the drop is coming from this side, then my guy wire is on the right side. There's some people that put triads on it, okay, that type of thing. But I always put a guy wire opposite of the weight. So if it's pulling it this way because of the weight of the mast, then I put the guy wire on the opposite side. All right, anyway, so here it is, overhang, and you see it goes up still 8.5 feet. So basically, this is a no-go zone all the way around the building, okay? All right, so let's check your knowledge today. Let's see what we've encompassed today. It says, provide examples of why the NEC requires a vertical clearance of 8.5 feet above flat roofs for service conductors. Okay, all right, well, the real reason is flat roofs are commonly used for outdoor seating at restaurants, dwelling unit applications, and so on. You have seating, kind of like balcony areas that are like rooftops that are over a room, but it's kind of like a balcony, but it's a rooftop. And people sit out there, enjoy it. They're designed that way. Okay, so if the surface conductors were lower, someone could reach up and touch them. The minimum clearances help to minimize electric shock, okay, or the shock hazard. That's one of the premises of the code is to protect individuals that would come in contact or work with electricity, okay, that type of thing. So that's what we're doing. All right, now conductors above a sloped roof. So we talked flat, right? 8.5 feet. We have flat. What about if you got a slope on it? Okay, well, the voltage between conductor does not exceed 300 volts. Again, so in a dwelling, very typical, very typical. So we have an allowance here for a rooftop to have a reduced clearance if the voltage between conductors does not exceed 300. So phase to phase on a 12240 for a typical dwelling, it's not going to exceed 300, right? So if that's the case, if we have a slope on that roof that is not less than a 412 pitch, then a 3-foot clearance is permitted. So from here down, if we have a clearance that is not less than a 412, then I can have a reduced clearance above the rooftop, and I can drop it down to 3 feet. And then the whole concept of this is that if you have a 412, it's not less than 412, then it's steep enough that there's a chance that people aren't going to be up there unless they're trained professionals up there to do a task or a job, and then they have to be very prepared for what they're going to encounter. I mean, they're trained professionals, right? So again, you have the allowance to reduce the depth, the height, 8.5 feet above a roof, if you have the sloping that is not less than 412 pitch, okay? And if you have that, then you can reduce that clearance down, okay? I'm gonna be honest with you. Brandon, have a blessed day yourself, my friend. Going inside the test, you got this. Focus. It's not about passing, it's about breaking the record. You got it. Remember, real quickly, remember the 3-wave method. Go through immediately, answer all the questions that you just know flat out you know. If you have a question that's more than a minute, mark it electronically, and then go to the next question. On the next wave, go back and only look at the ones you marked. And then if you answer one within another minute on the second wave, unmark it and go to the next question. If you can't answer it in a minute and a half, leave it marked and go to the next question. Unmark the ones that you answer, okay? Then the third wave, you're going to answer the question regardless whether you use an educated guess, okay? You eliminate the ones that you know are wrong and increase your odds. If you do answer it on the third wave, uncheck it and go to the next one. And then the time that you have left, focus on the things that still are marked, that type of thing, okay? Relax, breathe deep. You got plenty of time. Take your time. You got it, all right? Okay. All right, where are we at here? So unlike 230.24b, which stipulates that the vertical clearance also includes the drip loop, 230.24 provisions mention only the service drop conductors because the end of the service drop conductors could be part or all of the drip loop. Caution is advised. So what we want to do is go look at this. All right, and so we're going to go look at 230.24 so we can get a kind of a better understanding above the roof. So we're here. Let me get rid of this. Okay, and let's go to look right here. So here's the above the roof. So here's our general clearance requirements. Here's the above the roof. That's our 8 foot 6 inches. Okay, 8.5. Okay, and here's your maintain it. So here are the exceptions that we're talking about. Okay, there you go. There's the exceptions, right? So here's what we're talking about here. This is exception number 3. Right here, okay? It says, where the voltage between conductors does not exceed 300, okay? It's a typical 12240 volt service, okay? It says a reduced clearance above only the overhang portion of the roof is not less than 18 inches, okay? That's the overhang portion. It shall be permitted if 1 is not more than 6 feet of overhead service conductors, and it doesn't go more than 4 feet horizontally above the roof overhang. And 2, they are terminated at a through-the-roof raceway or approved support. Okay, and I don't know, this is an example right here of just showing you an overhang right here. Okay, an overhang right here. Assume this is outside. I can't see. It looks like it is. Yes. So this is, say, through the overhang portion. So this portion that goes over the roof, it can go up to 4 feet. This conductor can span 4 feet, and it can have a reduced clearance at that portion where it goes through over the overhang, okay? All right? So again, horizontally, doesn't go more than 4 feet. You overall don't have more than 6 feet of overhead service conductor, and you can have over the overhang portion, it can be reduced to 18 inches of clearance, okay? So that's this portion right here. I'll zoom in if this helps any. And that didn't really help any. This portion right here. So you can have it. Now, in this case right here, at the point of attachment, I still have the 3 feet, right? This is above the roof right here. But you have some reduced clearance right there where it goes above the roof, okay? Hold on here. All right, let me get back real quick. And this is their example of this umbrella around it, okay? If you have any questions or that's not clear, please, please, please let me know. And this is, okay, here's a good illustration to show you what it's talking about. So the overhang's not more than 4 feet. The reduction can be up to 18 inches instead of the 3 feet, as long as it's a through the roof penetration over the eave. And the overall length of conductor is not more than 6 feet. Okay, the overall length, right? Maximum distance. You can have a reduction here at where these conductors terminate. Okay, and that is the bottom of the drip loop, 18 inches of clearance. Now, anywhere else over this roof, I could have a 3-foot clearance if I had a slope that was not less than 412. Otherwise, I have to stay 8.5 feet above the roof, right? And you have to remember that it encompasses this whole roof, okay? 3 feet out, 8.5 feet up, okay? Oops, let me go back here. Right there, okay? Encompasses it, okay? All the way around, okay? All right, let's get back to the lesson. All right, so well, you know what? I probably should have looked at this one here. So there you go. Here, so here's your 412. Let's assume this says 412. So there we go, 412. All right. So for every 12 inches, it drops 4 inches. Okay. And here is the service drop coming down. Okay. All right. So here is your 3-foot clearance. Okay. Got that. All right. Here is the traditional one here. So this is obviously less than 412. So you don't get a break here, right? So this has got to be 8.5, right? So this is why you had these long masts, folks, because if you got to have this clearance, this is a shallow roof, anybody could walk over it, that type of thing, right? And over here, you see right here, we see this is greater than 412. So the reduced over the roof can be reduced to 3 feet, okay? So the point of attachment is usually the lowest point of the service drop. Yep, that is true, because you remember that the point of attachment has to be below the weatherhead. You'll remember that from yesterday, right? It says, if, however, the conductors run above the roof's highest point, let's say peak or ridge, a taller mast may be required. And of course, y'all know my rule. If it's not considered adequate strength, an AHJ, if for my rule was 3 feet or more, I'm putting a guy wire. But again, if it's only a couple feet, then it might be rigid or intermediate, might considered adequate strength, that type of thing. Okay. A service mast supporting service drop conductors must be of adequate strength or be supported by braces or guy wires to safely withstand the strain imposed on the service drop. Okay, 230.28a. If you're in a Fast Tracks program, make sure you always go look at the chevrons. Don't take anything for granted. Read it. Look at the illustrations, go to the code, and it helps you learn. Trust me, just follow what I say, okay? Now, this was that reduced clearance that we're talking about. So if it's not more than 6 foot linear of overhead service conductor, okay, so the overall service conductor is not passing over the roof more than 6 feet, okay, so it's near the edge, got you. The voltage between the conductors does not exceed 300 volts, check, 120, 240 volt, okay. The horizontal overhead service conductors measured does not exceed 4 feet, okay? So the path of service drop conductors above the roof is not more than 4 feet. Okay, so the overall conductors, including the loop, is not more than 6 linear feet of conductor, and the actual horizontal overhead service conductors that go over it does not go over more than 4 feet of roof material. Okay, got it. Conductors terminate in a through-the-roof raceway. Okay, so this is a through-the-roof raceway. Okay, obviously these conductors aren't going down in the building because that would be a problem, because that would be service conductors entering into a building and they're not protected, so that's not going to work. We saw the allowance where it allows you to be considered outside if it goes through the eave. Okay, that type of thing. So that's still considered outside of the building here. Okay. The conductor's minimum vertical clearance is 18 inches where all 230.24a exception number 3 requirements are met. Okay, again, that was the 6 feet, 4 feet of overhang. The conductors can be dropped down to at least an 18-inch clearance as long as you meet all of those, and that's for termination at the weatherhead. Okay, there you go. And the reduction in clearance to 18 inches applies to sloped roof as well as flat roofs where the service drop passes above the overhang portion of the roof only. Again, only the overhang portion. Okay. All right, that's a lot to cover in an episode. Clearances and all that kind of stuff. So tomorrow, we're going to get into working space and answer all those questions, talk about labeling of working space, all those kind of little goodies that you have to do. Whether or not you have to have that on all disconnects, and we'll look into the code and break it down a little bit to understand working clearances tomorrow. Let's do some giveaways real quick. Let's give 4 away today. So let's spin the wheel and give away some goodies or get you on the list. Let's see. All right, Ben, you're listed in for the NFC card drawing. You're in the drawing for that NFC card. For those that aren't familiar with that, it is our promo cards. You see them right here, engraved on metal, steel, and it has an NFC in it. You can reprogram it if you want, or you can use it to share the love for our stuff, our show, our promotions, things like that. If you become an affiliate, then you can actually program it with your affiliate. If you work for a company and you get other electricians to sign up for our courses or exam prep stuff, you'll make money if you want to be an affiliate. So that's another way to use the card. I didn't really think about that, but there you go. We are always looking for affiliates. You love what you got and you want to help other people, make a little money in the process, become an affiliate. Over on our website under the info tab, you'll see it where it talks about becoming an affiliate. Congratulations, Edward. You're in the drawing for the VD card. All right, congratulations for that. So what we got here. You never know what we're going to talk about every morning in different discussions, so hopefully you got something out of that. Rob Nickman, you are in the drawing for Trade Hog. Okay, congratulations on that, getting in that drawing. Do it again here. I'm running over again. I apologize for keeping you folks a long time. Hopefully you got something out of today. Tomorrow, you're going to get something out of clearances and all the discussions that we have about clearances. David, you are in the drawing for the conductor length card. Congratulations on that drawing. All right, let's see. Let's do one more here in drawing, and let's see here. Make sure you did #win, and we'll let you get in. Still have some nice left to be drawn away. Okay, still have that. Our voltage drop cards. Okay, if you want to know how to do voltage drop, keep it in your pocket. These are the heavy duty cards. for this the NFC promotional card. Again, probably one of the more popular things. People are actually buying these on our website because they used to be expensive with the website, right? But now, I don't remember what the price they are, but again, you're promoting Coffee Hour, but you can put your own website, your link tree on it. You can put your affiliate program. You put whatever you want on them. They're reprogrammable. That's so awesome. Okay, so if you're interested in that, put your business card on it. Link to your website. Okay, or maybe you just want to share the love for our show. That's up to you. All right, folks. I appreciate all of you that joined us today. Hopefully you got something out of today's episode. We covered a lot. Whether you sit back and watch it again tonight at 5 Eastern time and go, wow, we covered a lot of topics. Sometimes these things take a week to cover in a trade school. We covered a lot, so you might need to go back and read it. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, do me a favor. I don't have a problem with you coming tomorrow and asking me a question about a topic today that we didn't understand. Say, hey, Paul, can you retouch on something? Or maybe I didn't understand the clearances and how they're applicable or whatnot. You can do that because it's germane to the lessons that we're doing. Or you could go to paulabernathy.com and you can post your question there. Tell us exactly what your question is. Be very descriptive. Let me know what code cycle you're on. And then I'm more than happy to answer your question either in a podcast, either in an email, or maybe even on an upcoming coffee hour. You never know. All right. All right, folks. Till next time, stay safe. God bless. We'll catch you tomorrow, Friday. We will be digging deeper. We'll be in the clearances when it comes to working space, and we'll work from there. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless, and catch you on another coffee hour.